Good afternoon, Miamians. I'm Molly Young with the Miami University Alumni Association. And today, as part of the Alumni Association's webinar series, we present the Human AI Partnership. Joining us for today's presentation is Miami alum Tony Jones, class of '03. Tony is the founder and head instructor at Creative AI Academy and an adjunct professor at the Pratt Institute. Welcome to you, Tony. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just a reminder to our live viewers, you can submit questions throughout the webinar by clicking the Ask a Question button under your video. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tony to tell us a little bit about this new wave of AI.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you, Molly. Hi, everyone. I can't see you all out there, but I imagine you're waving back to me, or you're having lunch, or whatever it is you're doing. I hope that for the next at least 45 minutes or so, that we have an interesting conversation about generative AI and AI in general. I can imagine for all of you out there that you've heard enough about it already, probably today, and you'll hear more about it after our talk today and tomorrow and for a while now, right? And it could be a lot, right? But I want us to, at least at this time, think about our relationship with it versus me. Let's all think about all the amazing things that are going to happen, or all the scary things that might happen. Let's think about how can we imagine ourselves using AI in a natural, responsible, and effective way. And I think if we all can do that, that the future that we're unsure of that comes with AI will be driven by good people who are confident in using these tools, or thinking about this partnership in a positive and natural and effective way. So with that, I'm going to take you through some thoughts that I have, and I'll tell you a little bit about where I come from, what I do. First of all, I'm a Miamian, '03. And I had an amazing, wonderful experience there, and I recommend it to everybody that I can. And I hope you all agree. It's a wonderful place. During that time, I was an English major. I was a writer, and I think that's what is interesting is that it's coming back around. Well, finally, I'm not a journalist or a book writer, but being able to talk to AI, I'm being able to use some of those skills again. But my organization is really a business-focused organization, a B2B organization. We work with different companies, including Coca-Cola, including agencies, groups within Google, New York City Economic Development Corporation, and even other colleges, to help people understand how to adopt AI, or how to feel more comfortable using AI. Not particularly a particular tool, but really a particular mindset. And so we are trying to be there in the forefront to help folks to transition the way they think about AI in their organizations. I am one of many instructors. Our instructors are all experts or professionals, right? We have strategists, we have project managers, we have executive coaches who have all used AI in their own workflows and their own lives, are now teaching by walking the walk and talking the talk with others. So if a client comes to us that is very strategy focused, we have an instructor who knows how to use AI and also knows the vocabulary of using AI. Because if you think about the human AI relationship, they say, oh, this tool does amazing things, and some of the things you see out there, but really someone with a certain talent, right? Or let's say a scientist gets a hold of a large language model and they're researching cancer. They're going to ask questions of that large language model that I couldn't ask, and they're going to get an even better experience out of it. So although this tool can be anything to anyone, it's really interesting when it's something to someone. So really think about, as we're talking today, what are your core skills? What are your core talents that AI can help you to expand? Right. Again, BA in English. I'm glad that I learned how to communicate, because really working with these tools is just about communication. Then after that, I was a creative director at McCann, an ad agency in New York, for about 15 years. In that time, I was able to work with clients to develop new products, and those products actually were using AI. And those were, at that time, was more chatbots and more decision-making AI, but not really what we're seeing today. But nonetheless, I did develop a relationship with it early on. But I wasn't a little nervous too with how powerful ChatGPT was, and how easy it was for anybody to use it to create anything. And we're seeing that again till today. But I am now an optimist because I really think this is going to be great for all of us if we can just, reevaluate how we think about it. And then I also teach, this is my 5th semester now, I developed an AI design course, and I teach at the Pratt Institute, and I work with students and designers to think about how that they can rethink their particular storytelling and creativity when it relates to using generative AI. But it's not new, right? This is not a new thing that we're dealing with here, right? Netflix has been recommending movies to us for years now based on other movies we like, right? It says, okay, they watch this movie, it has this sorts of attributes. Let me cross-reference that with other movies that have similar attributes and show them a picture of that. That's just, algorithmic intelligence, right? Alexa, who takes our voice and through natural language processing says, okay, that sounds like the word watermelon, and therefore it turns it into text, and then it understands and sends a message to Alexa's servers and says, okay, this person is asking me questions about watermelons. Here's the answer, and then it turns it back into a voice prompt. So we've been talking with Alexa and Siri for years now, right? And Tesla or Roomba robots, right? They are looking around using image recognition or LiDAR or radar and taking that information and choosing to turn left or not, or brake or turn or not fall off the stairs or not go under the couch, right? So that's these things have been around us. But what's happened recently and why there's this big explosion is because it's been democratized. You don't need an engineer to tell you to be there to help you to make the machines do something. Now we have tools like Midjourney, in which we can create crazy images just with a few words. OpenAI has developed a series of products that allow us to do research papers better than graduate students, or as good as graduate students, I should say. To be able to generate all sorts of things. Now OpenAI is offering tools that are Operator, in which it allows the tool to make decisions on behalf of you and to move around and operate your computer. So these are all things that have become very easy for us to do as long as we can communicate. Now you can speak almost anything into existence. You can have OpenAI or Claude to create an app for you just based on an idea that you have. Whereas before that would have taken months and some other experts in the world. So GitHub Copilot is an example of this type of coding that is become very ubiquitous and easy for us. And the reason it was so easily democratized is because when we first saw ChatGPT, we all recognized what to do. Oh, that's a text box. Oh, that's a Google search bar. I know what to do there. I've been doing that for years. And a lot of people still use in their first uses with ChatGPT are using it as a search tool. But I think that what I would encourage you all to do is to spend more time. And again, bear with me. I know that in this audience, there are some of us who've been use these tools every day, or some of us who have not even or don't even want to touch it, and everywhere in between. So just bear with me if it's too simple or not. But I think that using a tool like ChatGPT as a search engine is nice, and it's very powerful, and it's very useful, right? You don't have to click through all of these different links, right? And even Google has now started to give us AI summaries of their search results, right? Where it says, okay, there's all these links here that we make money off of, and they're sponsored ones, and you have to click through them to really find what you're looking for. But you know what? Let's just give you a summary because we think that's really what you're looking for here. And so I think that's an important starting point for us, right? But nonetheless, I think that we can all move past that too, beyond that, where we start to use AI more and more naturally, we'll be able to really empower ourselves to get more things done versus just finding answers. Just my thought. And just note that Molly will be there to take any questions for you, and then I'm certainly going to save room for questions and answers. The idea that AI is democratized and easy to use means that I can draw a square in Photoshop and make a frog happen, or I can just describe what I'm talking about, and ChatGPT will create an image of it for us, right? And that's really exciting because there are people out there who have ideas and stories to tell that have been behind walls, right? And now somebody who maybe didn't have an art school education, or someone who isn't able to create to go out and film a film, or to create a game, or to write a book, or to make a beautiful recipe, right? All of these things are now at our disposal, and it's been easier than ever for someone to express themselves in new ways. So I'm very excited about where creativity is going to go, not just in the marketing or in the fine art space, but just day-to-day creativity is going to blossom. And I'm very excited about that. And it's moving fast and improving so rapidly, right? If you ask for the same prompt of Midjourney in October of 2022 and say a portrait of a nun holding up her hands, you would get some very, very creepy images in October of 2022. And by January of 2024, again, this is again just 2 years, right? Very, very quickly to the high fidelity quality that we're seeing right now. And that's just a representation of the speed with which this is improving. And that doesn't mean that it's going to get out of hand. I think we're plateauing with the amount of power that we really need. All of us, maybe some astrophysicists, maybe some real power users are feeling constrained by the abilities of the models that we're seeing coming out these days. But I think for the rest of us, we all have Ferraris. Now the question is, can we drive them to their fullest ability? One of the key ways to tell if AI is improving is what happens when we ask it to generate a video of Will Smith eating spaghetti. This is, again, over the course of, this is only 8 months difference, but you can see the quality of what it is. And if you see that out on the internet, that's the benchmark. How well does it do with Will Smith eating spaghetti? But because all of us can create images and just talk about something, there's a lot of sameness out there. You might say, oh, AI in the workplace, right? And you're going to see this blue being and the workers like always perplexed by it. This is just a matter of all of us being careful to say we should push ourselves to do better with how we use these tools. And again, this is not just an image generation lecture. This is really just about what is it that we can do to put better outputs, to create more interesting things with these tools. Because getting to a baseline, getting to a very boring and easy email is very easy for all of us to do. Who here has read an email recently that says, "I hope this email finds you well"? Well, that's a very common opening for an AI written email. So be careful with that. Double check what they're saying in that email. And also, if you do write an email yourself, you might say, "I hope this email finds you well," but I would recommend you rephrase that. You genuinely do hope that the email does find that person well. Of course, that's real. But this language is so common that we want to make sure that we're pushing past, right? So it's very easy to do these things. It's a little bit harder for us to do things a little bit better because AI is very fast, right? So if we were to think about, oh, well, that, this used to take me hours and now it takes me 10 minutes. Like if I were to put together a itinerary to go to Mexico, it's going to put something together very, very fast, right? Or it's going to be very, very clear. So that means that time that we got back doesn't mean that we need to just walk away and be like, we're done. Now that means that we can spend a little more time thinking about it. We can spend some more time improving the itinerary. Well, I really don't. Maybe I do want to go here, or maybe I do want to focus more on exploring this area. And now you are at a point where the AI relationship is really starting to get interesting, where it's giving you something very, very quickly for you to react to more slowly. And that's what I'm excited about in terms of where this world is going, right? If we think about how it acts in business, right? If you're a company that has to do a sales pitch, right? That sales pitch is not billable, right? That sales pitch costs you money in terms of resources. Well, now if you can compress the time it takes to do certain aspects of that sales pitch, right? Creating the deck or identifying the best, most interesting case study to show the client, or putting together a budget. If you can compress the timelines of those things, you're reducing the costs of what it takes to do that, but also you're giving your team back some time to think, how can we improve this? Is this really the best story we can tell? Is this really the best way to do it? So we're allowing ourselves more time to think slow. So I think when we say, oh, well, the work week is going to be 2 days now, Maybe, but I think the companies that are going to do really well are still going to want to work a few more hours because they've been given the chance to think harder about what they're doing. So I would say that this is, we say this pretty often at Creative AI, this is not a technological shift, it's a cultural one. And especially if you're thinking about your organization or within your own world, think about this as a way of thinking, of way of thinking versus a way of doing things, right? So when you're thinking about an organization, we say, okay, well, my team is made up of humans, and those humans work together, and at the intersection is where things happen, or those humans are operating. But oh, well, now AI's here. I can just replace one of those humans with AI, right? Oh, that's great. Now I can just cut the team in half, and we're going to be off to the races, right? Well, actually, you should really think about it this way. Can you double your workforce instead without having to lose anybody, without having to rethink how things are working? Because the humans that you hired on your team, or the humans that you put that are in your world, or your own human skills, those are very valuable components to the human AI relationship. Those skills are what you want in place. Those people are the ones you want operating AI because they know what to look for, right? Again, like if I were to generate an image of a frog, I didn't go to art school, I might be like, oh, it looks great. And then someone with a real eye would say, actually, these are the things that are wrong with this, and here's how I would prove it. So if you think about that example in all sorts of use cases at work, what is it that you can do to augment your human workforce and in effect double their output, double their quality and output without actually having to reduce costs, right? So as that human and as those organizations are provided with the training, the leadership support, the openness that is necessary to allow those humans to say, yes, I'm using AI for this job. I'm not using it in this way because I found that it's better if we just do this or that. These are all great experiments that happen. And this is a loop that happens between the human and the AI, right? So the human is saying, all right, I'm going to try this prompt, and the AI is going to give an output, and the human's going to be like, I don't like that. Why don't you try this again? And the AI is going to try again, but the AI is also going to learn that you didn't like that last response. And that's going to start to improve the way you two talk to each other. It's almost like horse whispering, or it's almost like another entity or a species or a being that you're learning to communicate with, and you're going to learn to communicate with each other. So as those teams, those individuals start to work with the AI, and this loop happens, we're all going to get more comfortable with it. And now suddenly your organization, if you nurture this correctly, if you provide organizational structure, or if you provide a warm environment for a human AI culture, then your team is going to be doubled now, in effect, right? With these well-trained and more comfortable and happy workers that are working with AI in their own personal workflows. And that is, you all could share certain tools, but you can all have all personal accounts. These are all different ways that the organization needs to think about. But as we all think about how folks are more naturally using AI, then and this is another new paradigm that's coming our way, when autonomous AIs become part of our work, where it says, okay, now there's an agent that does all of our new business lead generation by itself. Those humans who have been working with AI will now know what to look for, so that these tools are not working on their own without oversight. So I think this is a very exciting new way to look at how a company can embrace AI, and then how society can also start to think about this, right? If this isn't even just about business, all of us being to have our own personal relationship with AI will allow us to be more effective in using it, more responsible in using it, and then also be able to identify where the other AIs in our world need to be corrected or changed, right? And this sounds like science fiction perhaps to some, but it's not. I don't think it's far off, because I suggest that most of us are just maybe 5 or 6 hours away of really using the tools to really having a positive relationship with them. So what does it mean to have the human and AI relationship? What is it? What am I trying to get at? And I think there's some ways to think about this. And I'm also going to tell you a little bit about some prompting that is very important to communicating, I think, and a way to get you all started using it. So is AI actually intelligent, right? It's really more algorithmic intelligence versus artificial intelligence, right? So like we talked about with Netflix, like we talked about with search engines right now, it's trying to find the best next answer to whatever context you give it. We'll talk a little bit more about the importance of context later when you're actually working with these tools. But if you just think about this, when I say peanut butter blank, and actually everybody who's actively on the chat, I would love to see some people filling out this blank, right? Peanut butter blank. What is it that we might come across? If anybody's in, I actually don't see the chat. Do I see the chat? Molly, do you see the chat? Are there people answering?
Can see the chat. We don't have any answers yet, but it refreshes. And
No pressure. No pressure.
I would put jelly with peanut butter, but that's just one gal's.
Right. And what else might go fill in the blank here? Peanut butter. Actually, Molly, I'll just ask you. Give me a few more.
Sandwich. Yeah.
I didn't mean to lead you with that one, right?
Peanut butter jar.
Peanut butter jar, right?
Reese cup is I always think of a Reese cup when I think of peanut butter, but I don't know. Peanut butter sandwich and peanut butter jelly.
That was perfect. Thank you. That's exactly right. Now, when I say peanut butter and, what do you think goes here?
Well, peanut butter and jelly or honey or like whatever you like.
Right. Yeah. Right. So this is prompting. This is what generative AI is doing, is trying to take the context you provided it and trying to give you the most confident answer it can. So when I say peanut butter and, we're more likely to say jelly than if I were to say peanut butter blank. The first answer still might be and jelly, but then you also have room for sandwich, cup, all the other things that could be. But
we actually got several of those, lots of overlaps. We got some sandwiches, we got peanut butter cup, we got peanut butter and jelly. Yeah.
Right. So this is a fun thought experiment with how you think about it. So peanut butter blank allows us to be more creative and say, let's give AI less context and just run with it. And peanut butter and says, I'm going to spend more time thinking about what I want AI to help me fill in the blanks, and I'm going to be more looking for a more precise answer. Again, this is a very, very reduced type, very reductionist type example. But if you think about it, what context do I need the AI tool to understand to get me to a better answer? Then I will spend more time thinking about that before I start prompting, right? So as we think about this algorithmic intelligence, how do I improve the quality? Give yourself a little bit more context. Give the tool a little bit of help, right? So generative pre-trained transformer, that's what ChatGPT stands for in ChatGPT. Generative in that it's creating something new. It's not providing you a link. It's not copying and pasting anything. It's actually generating new text or images or a spreadsheet or ideas, right? Based on what it's been pre-trained on. So it's read the entire internet's worth of information. Anything that's published, anything that's out there, it's read it and processed it. So it's been pre-trained. And so when I say peanut butter and, it knows that it's seen jelly most likely beforehand. But the transformer part, which is really the math of the way the different different modules are speaking to each other and the decisions that they're making to provide you that best answer, that's a whole nother webinar that's very tech forward. But I think the transformer could also be you as the human, because AI is not sitting and waiting and hoping that you'll talk to it. It's not looking forward to trying to proactively write anything. It's waiting to be told what to do. So you are the one who's transforming an idea into a written piece. Hunger transformed into a recipe. The idea, a dream of a vacation transformed into an itinerary. So just give yourself credit as being part of this relationship, as the one who's operating, making this stuff happen. So talking to an AI and having a relationship with AI can be like having a new colleague, a partner, or even an employee that works for you. But there are some differences. And so when I go on to talk about prompting, you got to think about, what is it that I can say to a human that I couldn't say to that, or that what's something that's unspoken to a human that needs to be really clearly communicated to the AI. Because if you want it to act like a new employee, that you need to try to think about those things. So there's a nuance of human conversation, right? I use my hands a lot, or I have these ums and ahs and pauses in my voice. These are all natural cues for you to say, okay, he's excited or he's not sure what he's saying. All these subtleties that happen between us, and also facial expressions. The idea that there is a relationship between, if we're talking to a colleague, there's a relationship between you and that colleague, that you both worked there for 3 years and you had fun at the company outing yesterday, and tomorrow is Friday. Whatever those other unspoken, those don't exist in the realm of your relationship with an AI employee or an AI colleague. So there might be something that you need to express there. Right. So people saying, this is very important to me, right? Or I'm really stressed out. I need help with this, that, or the other. The AI will react to that only if told, for example. Right. So there are some unspokens that you might need to turn into actual communication. Again, passive until prompted. It's not waiting for us. It's waiting for us to tell it what to do. It's waiting for that next thing. Now, again, we talk about autonomy and agents going out and researching the internet and doing things for us. Yes, but they're being set in motion by us. So when I talk to an employee or a colleague and I'm talking about this, that, or the other, they are thinking about what they're going to say next. We are always thinking about what we're going to say next. Or we might change our conversation based on something said 3 sentences ago. And when it's our turn to talk, we might change our mind. Those are kinds of things that happen naturally that won't happen in an AI relationship. So you need to make time for those things to happen. Maybe you break down your prompt into smaller conversation bits so that you can have more of a dialogue and allow the AI to learn from some of the subcontext that humans would immediately get. And if you have a new employee right out of school, they're not 100% credible. You didn't show them all the ropes anyhow. It's not their fault, but they're really confident and they're very eager and very excited. So AI is also like that. AI is 100% confident that that's what you wanted. And it's sure you wanted to say jelly, but it might also not be credible. It might be we've heard of the word hallucination. We might have heard of the word, the idea that it's sending you links to things that don't exist. Right. Those are fair points. And that's okay. If you can think about it as like, okay, well, I don't want to use it if it's not 100% credible. Well, would you hire somebody that's 100% right all the time? That's hard to find. So we have to give ourselves a little humanity in our relationship with AI in that sense. Right. So this is how I relate with AI. Right. I have my earpiece in. ChatGPT has a talk function, and that's really my most common use case for it. Just talking to it, that I have a blurry idea of something that I want to get done or something I want to explore, and just rattle it off. And I have my ums and ahs that are actually captured in the conversation that the AI can just filter through and doesn't really get mired in. And then I can actually, by the end of a conversation, say, okay, turn that into bullet points of things I can do of action items against this concept I have. Or, I'm trying to plan a birthday party, blah, blah, blah. Where should I go? Where do you think I should start? What about this? What about that? And just have a dialogue with it. It's a very nice way to think. And then, this is actually not my work setup. This you see on the right here. I got to give credit to Greg Shove, who's at Suction School. This is his workup. He has a separate monitor where he has Claude or ChatGPT open on the side so that he can just move over to that monitor, ask questions, and have that part of his workspace. I think that's a really great way to think about where we're going in terms of, do we have our computers, and then we have our AIs that are there to be sounding boards for anything that we want, to write a first draft of something. Having that right there and ready for you, I think, is a great, really great unlock. But we don't necessarily need to get there yet, but I hope that you all will too. So you might have seen out there when say, okay, well, prompting AI is an exact science, and the newest job on the market is called prompt engineer. And well, it's not engineering. It's not that hard, I would say. I think that we just need to think about what are we trying to get at, right? And so I'm going to show you one formula, but this formula really should just be a recipe for you. So I'll show you how to make an omelet this one time, but next time you put the ingredients in yourself. The next time you break the eggs. The next time you change it out, you change butter for olive oil. whatever you need to do to really get going with generative AI is something that I would encourage. But if you see people say, oh, here's a prompt pack that you can, for $10, we'll give you 1,000 prompts. I mean, that's fine if you, that's fine. I'm not going to push against that. There is value in, if we're staying with the cooking analogy, reading recipe books, but nonetheless, sometime you got to go and crack your own eggs. So I'm going to show you this one, but I hope that this one helps you to get started. Yeah. So this is one prompt formula out there. So this is from OpenAI themselves. This is an example of what they suggest is an excellent prompt, right? So you have a goal, you have a return format, you have warnings, and then you have a context dump, right? So the most important thing to understand, and I'll walk through each of these more carefully, but what they were trying to suggest with this they put this out in the world, said this is the formula for a very good prompt with our latest model, which is a reasoning model. And so when they're talking about that, they're saying that the AI actually thinks a little bit before it spits out an answer. If you can establish the goal that you want to achieve, if you can decide what the return format is and what warnings it needs to understand, and then just tell it everything else you think it should know, it will do a good job. And I would agree. I would agree to do that. So let me just reiterate this formula for you for a little bit, and that'll help you to maybe take on your next prompt in a more deliberate fashion, right? This is the part of that thinking slow that I'm talking about, right? If I were to say, hey, AI, write me a book about the future of gardening, right? And I just click enter. Well, it'll write a book. It's going to write a whole book, or at least as much until it runs out of words in its particular generation. But then you're going to spend the next 3 weeks going through all of that and wrestling with it. If you were to say now, instead, you were to say, I'm thinking about writing a book in this topic. Give me top line ideas for how I might structure it. Now, suddenly you're having a dialogue and you're not just, trudging through all of the different things that you find wrong with the output, right? So just think about that way, and we'll go a little bit more into that. So I changed the writing a little bit because I want it to be more memorable. So I call it GOLD. So goal, output, lookouts, and data dump. It really should be GOLD with 2 Ds, but I think this looks nicer this way. But goal, output, lookouts, data dump. And I'll go through each one of those. If you can remember that with every time you prompt, you're going to get a better experience with these, and you're going to get further along. So goal, what are we even doing here, right? If you want to create something, literally use the verb. Create, blah, blah, blah. Write me an email. Design an itinerary for a vacation for spring break. List out all the possible ways to skin a cat, right? Summarize this really long article for me, right? That you're already underway with understanding your goal. But if you take a second to think about what it is you're doing, that'll actually give you the words you need to write your first part of your prompt. So if you want to research something, start with a question. Why is the sky blue? How do I know when is the best time to sell my car? Where's the best place to get tacos around here? I don't know. These kinds of questions are great starting points for ChatGPT or for whatever LLM you use, and they will actually come back to you and understand that this person is in research mode, and therefore the dialogue will be changed accordingly. If you want to transform something, literally use those verbs. I want to translate this into Spanish. I want to convert this into a table. I want to remix these 2 ideas and these 2 emails into one coherent email. So knowing your goal right off the bat is your first part of your prompt. And that's really some of the hardest part of it sometimes, right? So G-O, right? G-O-L-D, O is output. How do I want to review this, right? How do I want to evaluate this employee's work, right? Say, each answer should contain 5 ideas with hashtags, right? Or I want you to use metaphors. I want it to be written to be poetic, right? I want the answers in the form of a tweet, or I want the format to be in a table or a list with bullets, right? So whatever helps you to evaluate what's coming out and evaluating your goal, that's how you want to give it an output. So give some examples of what it should do so that you can make a decision about where do I go forward or do I stay back and revise what the output is, right? So GOLD, lookouts, right? So lookouts are what to avoid, the things that new employee doesn't know, right? So I find that this really helps when you've been using ChatGPT and it just sounds so stilted or so boring, or it's always saying, hey, sure, I'll give you an answer to that question you just asked me. It like literally says that. It's like, I don't need you to explain to me that you're about to give me an answer. Like, let's just get down to business. So these lookouts can be considered part of maybe every prompt, or you can actually put them into as custom instructions in your account so that it always knows to follow these rules when it's talking to you. And I'm happy to show that to you all if you want to see how that's done in your settings. But there are some things that after you start to use the generative AI, a lot of times you just want to wanted to avoid, right? So avoid making the explanation too technical, or make sure it's, keep it short. I always say keep it short because I want it to think and be more compressed, and I want to react instead, right? Stay focused on the topic. Don't go into tangential information. Maintain a neutral and professional tone throughout. You can see all of these things being instructions you would give to a human on your team, but also they're very helpful for the AI. So lookouts, these are just another dozen. I won't go through all of these, but don't make up statistics. If you're unsure, tell me. It's okay. It's okay that the AI doesn't know, and it should be informed as such. That it's out to really make sure that it doesn't have the data that it needs, because you don't want it to try to tell you something is true when it's not. Some other thing, avoid repeating phrases, right? Skip generic points. Use bullet point. Don't use bullet points unless I ask for it, right? So there's just some things that you can consider. But if you take the time to say, okay, here's my goal, here's how I want it to look so that I can evaluate it, and here's what I don't want, spending a little time thinking about that, right? Thinking slow about what you're prompting will help you to get a better experience. And then data dump. This is the fun part, because this is just where you can just anything you think it needs to know, throw it at it, right? Again, when I'm talking to my ChatGPT, I'll say, okay, I'm writing an article. I want it to be this things, and I don't want it to be too academic style. And then I just start rambling with my data dump about what the things I want to cover. And it really does a great job with that. So in the form of text, you're going to be a little bit more neat, but if you're talking to it, you might be a little bit more verbose, and that's fine. It will understand what to do with that. This is what's so amazing about it. But, when you think about the context, right? If you were going to give someone an assignment and say, write me a report on the first quarter earnings, if you don't tell that new employee some of the elements of that, or where to find the earnings, or what the earnings look like, or what was the Excel sheet that they should use, or what are past earnings reports look like, who's going to be in the audience of this report, what do we, what are some of the goals that we want to decide from that? These are all things that you would tell a human. Tell them to the AI. But the best part is the AI can handle it all in one fell swoop. Right? So you can say, here's a PDF of what we saw before. Here's 3 examples of what I like. Here's one that I don't like. Here's the brand guidelines for our company, right? Here's our company's mission, right? If you're writing, let's say, a pitch for a new client, per se. Custom instructions. We talked about this. This is a feature in ChatGPT that I can show you all if we have time. But you can give it context that says, in the custom instructions, I'm a founder of a company. My company is this creative AI. This is our mission. Whenever I'm using AI, I want to sound like this, this, and this. Those are all things that I put as basic instructions that are always applicable to whatever chat I have. And so I think that's some time where you can think slowly about knowing that AI, what you want the AI to know about you, so that you can then give it those instructions. Organizing by project, right? If you use ChatGPT, go back to, if there's a conversation about your itinerary for your vacation, go back to that conversation, because the context that you've already provided in the earlier iterations of that chat are now part of that context. So go back to it and say, okay, now let's pick up where we left off. You don't even need to say that. You can just start asking. But the idea is to pick up where you left off. If you start a new conversation, then it's a blank slate. It's a very smart blank slate, but nonetheless, you might have to reiterate some of the context you provided before. And then again, making sure you just define what's undefinable, right? Clarify jargon, clarify any technical terms, clarify anything that you think needs to be told, because it'll make it better. And the very active you articulating those watchouts or articulating that jargon, right? The lookouts, excuse me, not watchouts. It gives you some more control over what AI is going to do. Now you know what you don't want. Now you know what you're looking for and what to avoid. So this is an exercise in communication for yourself, right? The idea of giving it a sense of the tone that you want, right? Using words like eye-popping and thought-provoking and out of the box. Those might make us humans roll our eyes and say, okay, yeah, think outside the box, great. But if you actually using an LLM and say, I need it to be out of the box. I need it to be thought-provoking. I need it to be unexpected. These are actually really do help it to push harder, because it's naturally going to want to give you the Angeli, right? It's naturally going to want to give you the most confident answer it has. So if you say, I know that you're going to want to give me the most common thing you've seen, right? It's been pre-trained on the internet, and therefore the most common end of that sentence is jelly. You can give it a tuning by saying, I want you to push harder. Don't give me the first answer you think of. Don't give me the most obvious thing. And that's where we're going to get really interesting. And I really, and when you add these adjectives, they really do make a difference. So spending some time thinking about it does help, right? And then another great part of the data dump is an audience. If you're considering what your audience is, or your persona, right? If you were to say, I want you to think like a chef and give me a recipe for soup, whatever, that recipe might be a bit more advanced in this technique. It might have some more complex flavors that we might not have expected. And that's okay. So actually having an audience or an expert in mind when you're asking for a particular type of thing, say like, help me, think like a oceanographer and give me the best snorkeling spots in the Caribbean, right? Can you tell that we're thinking about vacation? Spring break is coming up. You can have it, thinking like that expert, and it's then accessing it in all of the things that it's been pre-trained on, the experts in the field. And so it's taking on the persona of those folks and knows how to give you an answer based on that. Another data dump part of persona would be to ask it to act like your audience. You say, I'm giving a webinar to C-suite executives in the consumer packaged good industry. I'm going to throw some ideas at you. Think like that audience and give me feedback on my ideas. Right? Think about what it is, and you tell ChatGPT, you say, what are the pain points that these executives are thinking about? What is their goal in the next 5 years? What are they looking for when they're being spoken to in a convention? All of those qualities that make up your audience or your synthetic audience that you're trying to react to can then be ready for you to get feedback on. Say, okay, here's 5 ideas that I have for the topic. Which would be most resonant with that audience? And then ChatGPT or Claude or whichever LLM you use will do a good job of explaining, here's why number 3 is probably your best idea. Or you might actually, none of these work. You might want to push in this direction because C-suites in the consumer packaged good industry are thinking about this, and this. Really, really a great unlock for making a better experience. But we're talking about personas too. Like here's just a fun example. And I have just these last 3 slides and we'll just talk, and then I'll have some time for questions or whatever. But a persona also allows you to quickly modify or at least tailor to your audience a little bit better. So this was an example of an email. I said, write me an email about summer Fridays for our company, where employees can select up to 6 Fridays between June 1st and August 30th to take off. from work. Do it in the voice of Gen Z. So now I'm going to show you 3 examples now, and we're going to offend everybody in the audience at once. So please be prepared to be offended. This is oversimplification, of course. But apparently ChatGPT, if you don't give it enough direction, thinks that Gen Z must have emojis in their emails. Gen Z must talk certainly in a certain way. So this one says, "Hey squad, great news. Summer's here and we're leveling up with Summer Fridays. From June 1st to August 30th, you get to choose 6 Fridays to relax and do you." Emoji, emoji. "Just give your manager a heads up a week in advance to keep things smooth on our end." Emoji, emoji. "Any questions, just holler." Blah, 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 blah. So, okay. All the Gen Zs in the audience, like, roll your eyes. I know that's not how you talk, right? Millennials, this is me. I only use 2 emojis apparently in my emails. "Unwind this summer with our new perk, Summer Fridays. Exciting news coming your way. As we welcome summer, we're thrilled to introduce our new perk, Summer Fridays," right? And then it goes on to say, "Just send a quick note to your HR manager a week before to ensure a smooth workflow. You have 6 days to pick from, so make your choices count. Got questions? Don't hesitate to reach out." So let me just go back to Gen Z. Any questions, just holler. Let's get that summer vibe going. Got questions? Don't hesitate to reach out. Here's an amazing summer ahead, right? So apparently it thinks that millennials are just a little bit more refined. Well, the boomers are going to be most offended by here, maybe, but they're of a nature, according to ChatGPT and what has been pre-trained on, that their emails are more formal in the business context. So we are pleased to announce an exciting addition to our summer schedule known as Summer Fridays. Blah, 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 blah. Please inform your manager a week prior to your chosen day off. Blah, 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 blah. This will ensure continuity in our operations. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. We hope this initiative makes your summer a bit more enjoyable. Again, very oversimplification, but just identifying who your audience is, or just changing the tone of voice that you want, just swapping out and thinking a little bit more about what you want from your prompt makes a vast difference. I did not have to do any extra work to make this change besides just changing the audience that I want to hear. So I encourage all of you out there who are using a little bit or don't want to touch it at all. Those of you who are using ChatGPT every single day, this might already be familiar to you, but this is what I suggest to you all. Again, I'm a teacher, so I'm going to give you a homework assignment, but I'm not going to check your work. You all get an A for today, but here's my homework assignment. I want you to think of these 5 ways that you can start to incorporate AI more comfortably in your life. So first, start small, right? Start with quick wins like summarizing text, just jotting ideas on, or rewriting something that you want rewritten. And you'll start to see how, again, what we went over, some of your prompts get better. You start to see the quality and ways to shift that quality of work that comes out. Take some time to think about what you want from your prompt. It's going to be better results. Again, if you're assigning this to a human employee, what would they need to know? If you looked at what you're about to prompt and say, if I gave this to a human, would they even know what to do with this information? Then maybe slow down and think a little bit more about what you might how you might want to change that. Experiment often. I just can't say it enough. It's like often try new formats, try new styles, try new use cases wherever you can, right? I think always understanding that I always say that we're only a few hours away from really understanding how to use AI naturally, and to see its positive opportunities ahead of us. So I would request that you experiment as often as possible, right? A lot of people have tried it and say, I tried it, wasn't that great. I'm just going to wait for it to get better. Well, when it gets better, you're still going to have to talk to it in a certain way. So you might as well work on your communication skills now. And it will only get better if you push it, really, because again, the quality and the power of these models that are coming out every single day. There's a new model from China, and there's a new model from OpenAI or Claude. Those are all really powerful. So it's up to us really to push. And so by experimenting often, you're going to see how far you can push with these things. And then talk about it, learn together, ask people what they do. How do you use it? What are you doing, right? If you're in an organization, you should absolutely be talking openly about who's using AI, how they're using it, and how can it help the company? Because it can. It's not going to be a detriment. It's going to be helpful if you learn together, if you talk about it, and we say, okay, we tried using generative AI for this part of that business pitch. it didn't do a good job, but we modified it a bit and then it came out with a good idea. Or at this point, this is really only perfect when a human just does this part. And that's okay. But learning where it fits and doesn't fit is an exercise in conversation in your organization and in your own lives. And then finally, I'd say stay curious, right? It's very hard to keep up with all of the news in AI. Maybe find one or two thought leaders that you can follow that you might have relate to you in a non-AI way. Say, okay, I get this person, so the way they're talking about AI helps me. I would say read what you can, test out new tools when they come out here and there, and try to get the free version before you go too far. And then remember, your intuition plus your AI, the human parts of you paired together with AI, will become your superpower. So that all comes through exploration. So have at it. Please have fun out there, because I think it could be fun. But those are my steps. I'd love to, if possible, now take some questions. And I would encourage all of you who maybe if you're looking for someone to think about AI and someone to follow on LinkedIn, I would be glad to have you all learn with me as I explore and experiment.
Tony, that was a really good presentation. And actually, you kind of affirm the approach I've taken to using ChatGPT. The more you sort of give it the opportunity to find a voice, the better it is. And yeah, I think following your sage advice, especially using like that gold, sort of intuitively, that's how I've fine-tuned mine. And I think that really works. That's a really good acronym for that. We have several questions. Let's see. I'm gonna sort of start. Let's see. This is a good one. And you talk about sort of learning to communicate with new employees. This question is from Peter. He said, would an apt comparison of learning to communicate with AI be sort of similar to learning to communicate with someone who is from a different culture or a foreign country? It's really just sort of like back and forth until you learn what's meaningful to the other person. Is that sort of similar?
I think so. I think that's an interesting. That's an interesting way to put it. I hadn't thought about that. I think that's true of, let's say, of the first few times, but you also learn pretty quickly that it does a very good job of the large language models that are out there today. It does a very good job of filling in blanks in context, and you'll be surprised as you go back and forth how intuitive it is to what you're trying to communicate. But yeah, I think that's a great starting point to think of it that way.
I really like that you use the generational, like for the Gen Z. I often use ChatGPT to find the voice of a different generation than mine. And I almost shuddered a little bit because I almost sort of identify with the boomer language more.
Sure.
But I think maybe that's because I was socialized by boomers. So
right.
That makes
and
good
also,
sense.
A formal email is usually, like, we don't need to have a party in our inbox. We should.
Right, exactly. Yes. That's validation. Thank you. Okay, so here's another sort of avenue that we can walk down. AI in schools. I have Dr. Kurtzmiller here. He asks about school AI or Magic School, which I think are education related AI platforms.
Okay.
Do you have thoughts on those? Do you have, what are your thoughts on using them, employing them in sort of the future of that in the classroom?
Yeah. So at my organization, one of my clients is Georgetown University, and we worked with their faculty. They already have they have a program, and much like Miami does, of incorporating new technologies into learning. That's not a new paradigm, but there's this thought of the first wave of everything that came out when ChatGPT kind of came out of the market. The essay's dead. We're never going to be able to tell if students are learning anything anymore. We're just going to have to be constantly fighting for, and trying to figure out if they're plagiarizing or not. And I'll tell you right now that none of the plagiarism tools or detection tools, the AI detection tools, are accurate. So I wouldn't rely on those. What we do talk about with our teachers is, how do you understand that this entity exists in our world, and your students are going to be relying on it, much like happened when there was Cliff's Notes, much like what happened when we got internet, much like happens when calculators came into play, right? Calculators came into play and people are like, well, no one's going to learn math anymore. Well, now there's calculus, and now you can get a PhD in the topic. So I would argue that it's not over. I asked that we talked to the teachers about how do you reevaluate your curriculum so that you can say to the students, yes, I want you to use AI to do the research portion of this, but I want you to finish, if you're trying to teach them writing skills, for example, I want you to only do the last draft in your own voice, right? Or I want to say, I want to understand if students understand this text. So I'm going to ask them about it with a live conversation in the classroom. And I'm asked ChatGPT, hey, this is the text I'm doing. Give me 5 conversation starters for this text. So now is when teachers and when education can embrace this as a thing and not something to fight against, this is going to be very exciting because our students are going to need to learn critical thinking skills. They're going to need to learn how to formulate ideas or to push on ideas or to explore their inner thoughts. Those are things that AI can help with only if they're taught how to use it and if we're open to that being part of the education system.
Right. And you mentioned critical thinking skills. I think you sort of need to employ critical thinking skills
Absolutely.
to prompt accordingly. So, that's sort of, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine a little bit.
Right.
So I'm going to pull a thread on that because there are some questions here about sort of, you mentioned that perhaps initially you were somewhat of an alarmist. Now you're like optimistic about the future of AI. Can you tell us like what's really changed for you? Like what sort of like shifted your opinion on, sort of the validity and the overall safety and security and value of AI?
So the difference was I started using it myself instead of reading about it and reading those articles and all that. I said, okay, let me try generative AI. Again, I had some experience with AI in terms of chatbots, but this is in 2017. It's a different animal then. This was, oh my gosh, it can mimic anybody's voice. All of our jobs are going to go away, and the machines are going to take over. Blah blah blah. And then I started using it. And I said, okay, this is not that scary. This is me communicating. And as a creative director for many years, I said, actually, this is what I did for a living, which was, there's another entity in the world. I have an idea that I want to transmit to that other entity and see what we can create together. And that's what I worked with when I worked with my colleagues or with people who are on my team. Now AI became an outlet for that type of communication. So I got very optimistic about what I had to offer, which is like, now I can spit out ideas and they'll become something more. And then I started to realize, oh, what happens when a scientist who's studying cancer starts jabbering on about ideas that they have? What happens when somebody who wants to solve hunger starts jabbering on about what they can do and see what comes back? Now suddenly, when all these other people with great things to offer the world get a hold of these, that's where I turn very optimistic.
Well, that's such a great way of looking at it, when you really put like geniuses in their own field asking questions that are valid and relevant, it's only just going to keep spitting out better and better information. And I think that's a really important thing for folks who may be like, oh, man against the machine, because I think that the sort of alarmist was born out of that. And that's sort of how I started using ChatGPT as well. Like, oh, thank you so much. I just want to make sure it knows I'm being nice to it,
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know what? And that's okay too, right? So say thank you so much might be a way to prevent when, you being on the bad list when the AIs take over. I don't think that's happening anytime soon. But also it teaches you to be a better human. Please and thank you is something that becomes a natural conversation with your colleagues. So we're actually, practicing that.
Yeah, this is definitely a much more sort of like soundboard tool,
Right.
in the sense that you can like actually talk to it and dialogue, and that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting close on time. Just one more question because I think this is sort of a common one. Can you tell us anything about sort of like safeguarding, either our information, our privacy, our data, our identity? Like, are there concerns? Are there things that we should maybe keep our finger on the pulse of?
Yeah. So one thing to do if you're using ChatGPT, for example, is go into settings, click on your profile fit in your face, and go into data controls. And there's a little toggle there that says improve the model for everyone, which is a very nice way of saying, can we please read all of your chats? I would turn that off. They don't need our help to train their model anymore. They don't need to learn from us. They have billions of dollars from Microsoft to do that. So turn that off. That's one way to say, okay, now I have access to the brain power, but none of them going back into it. So that's a very quick win. And then if you have an organization, get an enterprise version or a Teams version of ChatGPT or a Claude, or using Microsoft, an enterprise level Microsoft, they have Copilot, which is the brain of ChatGPT, and all of the indemnities and all of the rules that are in place for you putting sensitive PowerPoints or spreadsheets from your clients onto their cloud are under the same terms as you using their ChatGPT interface. So those are some ways to think about that. And then when we're talking about our identity, I would say, this is gonna sound like maybe cynical, but like we've been doing it for years. We gave up our inboxes in exchange for free emails through Gmail for years ago. We gave up a lot in our terms and conditions on Instagram and Facebook and all these social media platforms. So when it comes to protecting your private identity, I think that, all the things that are in place these days, which is LifeLock and those types of tools are going to be the same. I think a deep fake of you doing something might be something possible, but who's on the other end of that has something against you? I don't think it's the AI. So we have to think about that. So I know that's maybe kind of a weak answer per se, but we can take steps just to be careful with not letting the right data go to the wrong places as best we can.
I think that settings tip is super hot, and I'm going to do that as soon as we're done here. Yeah, thank you for that.
Sure.
Tony, this has been super great. And in fact, I've gotten feedback already saying what a super good presentation this was. So thank you so much for sharing with us. I think you gave us all of us viewers a little leg up on how to more effectively use our friends at ChatGPT or any of the likes, the Claudes or the whatevers.
Right.
So thank you. Really, I think it's super helpful.
Yeah, thank you, my fellow alumni. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. If you would like to sort of reach out to Tony, you can follow him via that LinkedIn account there, Tony at creative-ai.academy. You can also reach him there. For those of you interested in viewing a recording of this, you can see it later today on our website at alumlc.org/MiamiOH. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. Tony, thank you very much for spending the hour with us. I have learned a lot. I think I can speak for these other folks. They have too. Thanks so much.
Thank you all. And those sorry, one thing, Molly, those folks in the chat,
yes,
reach out to me. I can give recommendations on the platforms and also the credentialing from Cindy and Leah. But anyone else, please reach out with questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tony. Love and honor to you. Love and honor to you all out there. Have a great afternoon.